Hey, I'm in now.
Hey, cool.
Cool. How are you?
Good, good. Sorry, guys, I've been absent for a while.
Are you in the US now for a while?
Yeah, I'm here for a few months. We're gonna have a baby in April,
Nice.
so
Cool.
we came back to the States for
Yeah.
that.
Are you going to move back after the baby's born?
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably a month after, maybe in May, we'll go back to Cambodia.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Should you take the lead on something?
Yeah, so we have the follow-up topics. So the first thing is the Imba router, and right after we have the mono repository discussion. So do you want to use your screen or should I keep it here?
It's same for me. You can keep it there for a while.
Cool. So you sent the link. I haven't really looked at it.
Yeah, so I haven't worked on it for 2 weeks or so, but I started migrating the Imba router to Imba 2. And there are still a few things missing, and I'm just wondering, I'm not totally satisfied with the way you do loading, like when a route matches, how you actually load data from that route. I wasn't totally satisfied with that in Imba 1. So I've just been playing around and thinking about better ways to do it. But other than that, it is mostly working. So I think, but I do think, again, that's probably for the mono repo discussion, but I do think we should move the router when it's decent enough, move it into the main repository.
Yeah, actually, I don't agree. I think we should move it like really early. That it's not yours.
Okay. Yeah.
So we should move it really early into the repository. If we create a new directory called packages, and there we have router and whatever, we could also have other tooling for things like the roll-up integration stuff and so on.
Yeah.
But I think it's better to have it earlier so we can have it all in the main line.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But we don't need to release it. Like we don't need to publish it until we feel like, okay, it's actually ready for some usage.
So for that, I agree that in that sense, we can move it today. But what I mean with moving the router into the main repository isn't even, that's actually baking it into the main Imba package.
Yeah, that's not what I was talking about.
No, yeah.
I see.
But do you agree that that is the eventual step when it's mature enough? It's not going to be imported or required unless you actually use it.
Yeah, if we continue on if you build on what we talked about earlier, and that's that there is a minimal compiler package, and there's an Imba package which is more rich and has everything you need for applications. Yeah, then I think it makes sense.
Yeah. Cool. Do you have any input on the router, Eric? You've used the Imba 1 router, I guess?
Yeah, I used Imba router in Imba 1. I haven't used it with Imba 2. But
yeah.
Do you guys have that going at all? I'm kept up with that.
Yeah, we have, or it's hidden in a branch of the Imba 2 Hello World example. So it's basically just a playground where I've started migrating it to Imba 2.
Yeah, I'll add a link to the...
Yeah, you can do that.
Yeah, but maybe it's better to wait until we have it. But if you want to look at it now, you can... Yeah, there's the link.
Cool.
So yeah, do you miss anything? I guess that might be a huge, a long discussion, but do you remember specific frustrations or anything with using the Imba router?
Not at this point. I can't. It's been a little while since I used the Imba router.
Yeah, because that's the challenge. Like I do want to have an official way to do routing, and I want to have it in the library itself. But at the same time, from the projects I've been working on, in most cases, we end up doing a custom kind of routing, like in GitSpeak, because it has a kind of an interface that doesn't fit well with a regular router.
But even Imba IO doesn't use the Imba.
Yeah, but that's the main reason for that is that it was created before the Imba router.
Okay.
So Imba router actually spun out from the routing in Imba IO. So a website like that, if a website like Imba.io couldn't even use the Imba router, then it's pretty useless, I guess. I'm not sure what people do in the Vue community, because Vue has an official router, and then there are a bunch of other alternatives.
Yeah, that's actually interesting. I haven't really looked. There is a Vue router package, I think.
Yeah.
And I think if you're using vanilla Vue, I don't think the router is included. So
No.
if you use Nuxt,
Yeah.
then you get like all of these packages
Yeah.
already like that are from the official Vue project, but they're just not bundled in there unless you use the Vue CLI thing, I think.
So when I started migrating the Imba router, I again looked at the routers from a bunch of other frameworks.
Yeah.
And most of them actually has like a file or at the top of your application
where
you define the routes.
That's what you're, okay.
And we don't do that in the Imba router. So like you basically do all the routing inside of the country.
I see. So there are some things that are really interesting. So or useful. Like one is it's just the JSON payload, like where you define this is a route, and I want here is the mapping, and then there's the zero configuration type with the file system. That's my preferred one.
Yeah.
And then you have the one which is very basic, just the HTTP redirect. So for example, /x always redirects to either some other host or some other path.
Yeah.
And that's just a flat file where you have a key value type thing. Left side, right hand side. I think we should try to support several of those in the Imba router.
Yeah. At least we need to find a good default that makes sense. Because I definitely think we should, I probably don't think we should support like file system routing in the main Imba package, but do that in more of a Nuxt-like application framework for Imba, because it will require a lot of custom things in the build pipeline and everything. But yeah.
Yeah, maybe that's out of scope.
Cool. So yeah, the status is that it's not done, but we can try today, or at least this week, to move it into the main repository, and then iterate more on it quite often, I guess. So that's a good start. Yeah,
and we could also try to add examples or add it to the test suite.
Yeah,
it's also part of the.
And it would be fun for me to see how how we set that up, because I'm interested in doing that for other projects as well.
Yeah.
So if you can take the lead there.
Yeah, sure. It's a JSON configuration, super easy.
Yeah.
And it has super same defaults. Like all of the usual commands just work. You just have to tell it for the basic stuff. Like this is fairly basic. You can have more complex cases with nested packages and so on.
Yeah. Cool. So
I'll start playing with that.
What did you say?
I'll start playing with the router. That'll be fun.
Yeah.
Cool.
Next up is syntax for decor.
Yeah, but before we jump to that one thing that's interesting, let me see if I can find discourse. I'm just gonna find it here. So it would be nice to just cover that part. Like, so I think Eric asked the question, the Imba rollup stuff. So if we like do that together with, let me see if I can, there. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so if we can cover that one, and I also have some follow-up questions.
Yeah. That's a good question.
Yeah, so
that's a good question, because Tailwind is getting more popular every day, and we definitely need to support something like it. It's usually so Tailwind uses post CSS. That's actually a good question, Eric, because Tailwind uses post CSS and what is it called? It uses something else to shed the unused classes
Isn't
afterwards.
that
Yeah,
post
it's got
CSS?
like purge, like
Yeah,
purge
purge.
CSS or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So do you know, is that whole thing supposed to work with rollup?
There is a plugin that's supposed to work with rollup,
Yeah.
but you know, again, this is like what makes me want to quit coding is just dealing with bundlers and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
Pain in the
So
ass.
I can't claim to understand what's happening.
yeah. Yeah. So I agree, since Tailwind is a very
The link I put for Tailwind there goes right to the where it explains how to use it with post CSS and all that, and use it with other things.
yeah.
I think, and the post CSS link goes to the rollup plugin for post CSS.
Yeah.
What I saw that is that post CSS handles a lot of that CSS pre-processing or CSS frameworks
Yeah.
with simple plugins. You just put the plugin in and it will take care of it. So if post CSS is there by default, then people can easily put Sass or Stylus or Tailwind or whatever framework or anything related to CSS or Sass.
Yeah.
So that looked pretty neat.
Yeah. So we should definitely look. I hadn't seen that question before the meeting. We should definitely look into how we could modify. So my preferred alternative would be to add default configuration to Imba Rollup so that it supports Tailwind, or basically supports full CSS if you want to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but we still like, do we want, if we have default configuration, I still think it's not obvious how you actually configure this rollup stuff. Now we have this Imba config JSON thing.
Yeah.
And what is that actually? Is that the vanilla?
No, yeah, that's a custom undocumented type of configuration. But as long as we document it, I think we should probably work from that. Like start to make that. If you have some configuration stuff, we should have a file like that. Because that's important as well for in the future when we start adding more of the type checking and stuff for the compiler. And so when you launch a project in VS Code, it's nice for that project to be able to like find a config file and know what the entry points are and stuff, instead of making people use, like everyone use a different type of bundler.
Yeah, it makes sense.
But it definitely needs to be documented to have people use it.
I worked a way around it. Like I just used like compiled CSS for Tailwind, and I figured things out.
Yeah.
Used it on a small project today, and it worked fine.
And the main problem there is that it ends up importing an insane amount of CSS, right?
Exactly. I can't purge. I can't. Yeah. Be modular. I can't. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's another interesting point. You can't. The way we do the CSS blocks now, you can't really use import.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When we did it through Webpack, you could use import.
Okay.
I'm not sure if we want to use import, because at least it doesn't make sense to use import inside of a scoped CSS block. At least it's very difficult to make that work, right?
Well, what's difficult about it?
It's difficult for us to, then we need to like parse the import. If you expect whatever you import to actually be scoped as well, then we need to parse the imported content and add weird selectors inside of the import. I'm not sure. It could be useful to see how Vue SFC does that. Like what is supported in the style blocks in Vue single file components. But other than that, like it would be okay if you just at the top of your client entry point has to write import and the CSS file, I guess. I don't remember how Tailwind works where do you usually import Tailwind, Eric?
Well, you can import it directly into the HTML, but I think post CSS, if I'm not mistaken, it can do a sort of CSS in JavaScript type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really remember
But I'm
this.
not. I haven't. I just started using Tailwind like this week. I heard
Yeah.
about it this week, so I'm kind of new to it.
Yeah.
But I see that it's like kind of utility based framework,
Yeah.
and that just totally like blew my mind. I see that I started looking about it and reading up on it, and it seems like frameworks are gonna go that way.
Yeah.
It's really, 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 really smart.
Yeah. It is nice. I looked at it myself. Let me see. So post CSS loader, it's usually used with, it requires a lot of setup, but it's usually used with Webpack, I guess. Does it support Sass as well? It looks like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's so much configuration in the JavaScript world. So just looking at the installation page for Tailwind is basically like 5-6 things of setup.
Yeah, but to be fair, like it's different approaches of using Tailwind, right?
Yeah.
You have
Is
they're
it
accommodating several use cases
Yeah.
or several
I'm not
tooling.
sure. I think most of it is the same.
Yep.
So it's about using it for Webpack, Gulp. Don't you need to use it for Gulp at the same time? So both of them? No, maybe not.
No,
probably not. Yeah.
Gulp is a different tool.
Yeah.
So if you use Webpack, you just have a few lines at the top.
So maybe it's not really working well with Rollup then, since I see someone has made a plugin. But
Oh yeah, we can't see your screen in the screen.
I know.
So I forgot that. But like I think it's good using that as a benchmark for getting support for the other languages, and then maybe that's going to improve the implementation for the CSS blocks.
Yeah.
But I definitely think we should move the Imba rollup into the packages and then start figuring out what's broken, or if we're going to start supporting this, maybe we should do that. Like we should go all the way again on dog fooding and then try to accommodate Eric's use case here and get this working. Yeah.
I do think that,
Something else I mentioned there, for example, for adding plugins dynamically, not just statically, like being able to import modules from node modules and stuff. With a JSON file, it's pretty static, and you can't really do that. So I heard somebody online saying that you could, for example, with Rollup, you could use either JSON or JS, and I'm wondering, can the Imba config file be JS also to be able to do that type of importing of plugins and
that's a good
stuff?
point. It should be able to be an Imba file as well, I guess.
Yeah. That should actually be very easy to do.
Yeah. But do we need, I agree that it should probably be able to be an Imba file as well, but I think most of the loading should, so for Tailwind, it's difficult. So the goal is to have, like, make Imba Rollup have same defaults and allow like magical configuration. So basically, just as an example, if Eric just added Tailwind true, or probably not Tailwind, but post CSS true or something, then we add that into the list of plugins in the correct order and everything. The problem with having the Imba config file be executable and allowing requires and stuff is that it's more difficult to actually like in the TypeScript world, you can't have a TS config that is written in JavaScript or TypeScript, because it is important that it is just static and simple. Then you need to just support the things you. So we can think about it, but possibly if you need to add a lot of dynamic weird things, then maybe it's better to go outside of the world of Imba Rollup and just use Rollup directly. if we provide some default configurations to show how it works.
Mm-hmm.
Am I wrong?
I'm looking up. I found an
Yeah.
issue on GitHub. I can put it on screen. Sorry.
Yeah.
So here's the issue. I didn't read it. I started looking at the title. Let's see.
Yeah.
So here's a way to generate it.
Yeah. So the first comment there, if you look up, that's kind of this. No, the next comment. Sorry.
This one.
It's kind of the same. The same response that I'm talking about.
Yeah, I see.
So it's not like a Webpack config because it's a type of config where you actually want tools like VS Code and the compiler itself, etc., to understand it and be able to make some choices based on that.
Yeah, I really don't have any opinion on it.
Yeah.
Like with the regards to the configuration. So as long as it's like really obvious how you go from I'm gonna go my own path. I don't want to use the default stuff. Like if that's obvious, then that's the great situation.
Yeah.
Because for the majority of the cases, everyone's using the default stuff.
Yeah.
And the other ones, they just change out the bits they're interested in.
Yeah.
And that should be very, very obvious.
Yeah.
And conventions are useful for people like me that don't know configuration. And people that do know configuration, they can start from scratch if they want to. You know, they can make their own thing.
I've been developing for 20 years now, I guess, and I'm still like the Webpack configs. Yes, I managed to create Webpack configurations that do what I want, but they are really messy and they look different in basically all projects. And there are so many that it makes sense. That there's a reason for that Parcel became quite popular quite quickly. That was because it has sane defaults. So in my opinion, they aren't really sane because it doesn't work if you haven't magically installed Babel in your project and added a Babel config file, etc. But yeah, I think most people would prefer a config type with sane defaults that just works.
Yeah, so I don't really. Do you have anything to add here, Eric?
No.
It was this isn't part of the mono repository discussion, but I saw your comment about the class names in Tailwind as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so we should probably look into that. They are really weird. So I know they use colon, but don't they use another like backslash or slash or something as well?
They had like a backslash with the colon in their CSS. That's how they do it. But then to call it, you just use the colon. It's like they're escaping the colon or something.
Yeah. So we should definitely support at least with escaping the colon. But I'm afraid that allowing the colon in the regular tag class syntax makes it quite confusing.
Yeah, I get
you have
that.
Colon and you have colons for events, and it just starts.
Yeah, I figured it shouldn't necessarily just be the colon.
Yeah.
I tried escaping it with a single slash, but that didn't work. But if I use the curly braces, I can escape it that way. And
yeah, but I do think it should escaping it. Again, if we think that Tailwind is actually going to be used by quite a lot of people and it looks like that, then it makes sense to allow escaping it without using curly braces everywhere. Because the curly braces it's less performant as well.
Yeah, I looked up the trends for Tailwind on Google Trends to see if it's actually growing or dying, and it's actually ramping up really quickly now.
Yeah. It might end up being like the new Bootstrap, and if it does, then sure, we definitely need to allow for good Tailwind support out of the box. Yeah.
Cool. So I don't think we need to talk more about the mono repository, but it seems like we want to move in the direction of moving stuff in there.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work, we can change it, right?
Yeah.
So I think we should start archiving the various repositories and then redirecting.
Yeah.
And we should also try to have top level, or every of the packages are gonna have a top level README, right?
Yeah.
Due to npm setup and so on.
Yeah.
And then I think we should also maybe defer the smashing into Imba.
Yeah.
For later.
Yeah.
So we can. So there's no rush.
We need to first battle test it, and
Cool.
Yeah.
So do you want to take over the screen for the next topic, the syntax for decorators?
Sure, I could do that.
I'm gonna stop sharing now.
Let's see.
Do you want me to go grab you a coffee?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Share. 2. See.
There.
So, we haven't really playing around.
The reason why I'm interested in this is because it seemed like to be still loose. Like there was no, like, this is the way. It was still in the discussion phase.
Yeah, it is still in the discussion phase. It is, so the current syntax.
Yeah, sorry, could you make the font bigger, much bigger? Oh, you can use the menu thing.
Shortcut to zoom out doesn't work. Let me see.
There, bam, just all the way, maybe.
Yeah. So there is a syntax now using double at, because that was the original thing. So if I had defined some test to, if I had defined the decorator here, I can just try to compile it. It will look pretty weird. Yeah. It uses, it's essentially the decorate function that TypeScript uses. But yeah, it will, you don't need to look at the output because it's pretty messy. But yes, the double at syntax works for decorators currently, right now. But the question was, so that works for functions. If you had like the profile, if you have a sort of a decorator that wraps the function and adds timing and profiling to the function, or log if you want to log it or whatever. Same goes for props. So you have name on, then you, or state ready, then you could do like watch if you have a decorator called watch. But all these ats look kind of weird, especially for this type of field.
Yeah.
We do support, we discussed this, I think, that fields, defining fields in the class body could be done without the at as well. Like just state equals ready. That's more in line with how it looks in ES6. But I'm just not sure if we want that or not. But anyhow, even if we do that, we still can't use the single at for decorators, I think, because that's very weird, because inside of a function or inside of something else, this represents an instance variable for like this watch. And it doesn't make sense that we use the same syntax for decorators.
Oh, does this one work?
Maybe. Does it? No.
No, it
Maybe I can.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, it works.
Yeah. So I was thinking, I'm just thinking out loud. Maybe Eric also has some syntax suggestions.
Yeah.
The one that I was thinking about now was, okay, so you don't, yeah, you have US layout. Oh, it's the Emacs bindings which don't work here.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, how about this one? Like, there.
I think it's. I don't like it.
Okay, you don't like it.
Yeah.
Eric, do you have any syntax suggestions for decorators?
Well, I was thinking that the double at symbols would actually be very fitting for the context.
Yeah, I agree.
Feature, and then you could use the hash symbol for decorators.
Yeah.
So like this then?
No, the hash symbol is now used for private variables, private fields. And that's also the how it's used in ES6 in JavaScript. So
Okay.
Sadly, we don't know. He's talking about using the hash for actual decorators. Like I can.
Yeah, show me. I didn't understand
Like
that.
this.
Ah, okay.
If we didn't use it for private fields, I would kind of like it. So the one possible thing that I proposed early on was using at. No, and. What do you think about that?
I don't know. Like it feels weird. It reminds me of pointer dereferencing and things like that.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of low-level languages. Just looks weird.
So what was the other ideas? Wasn't it like something like this?
Yeah.
For properties, I like that because then it makes more sense to define a property like this.
Nice.
And then you do name hello if it's a property that doesn't have any decorators. Obviously, it will look better with nice syntax highlighting.
Oh, I like that. That actually looks good.
But does it look good for methods as well? Maybe it does.
Yeah.
I really don't know what decorators are, so.
Yeah. It's when we get it out with a good syntax and some documentation, it's you're in for a treat because it's extremely useful. So I have some ideas about how to look up decorators as well, that's probably just another episode of the changelog or something else. But I think one of the problems with decorators, especially in JavaScript, is that you always need to import all the decorators you are going to use in the file, and that just cumbersome and it adds a lot of additional bloated code. So I do like the idea of if you have a class. So I have a class stream inheriting from my buffer thing or whatever. Then if you use decorators here, like I use the watch decorator, I think it would be nice that it will, when it initializes, it will first check like, okay, is there a watch defined in the scope of the file? And if not, it will also try to look up like stream watch decorator or something. So if there are actually if there are static methods defined on the class or the superclass with the suffix decorator, then we'll use that as a decorator, because that's really nice if you have data. If you have some data library where you have like company is a resource model, and resource is a class that has a lot of specific types of decorators defined, so that you can like field state ready. And since resource has a field decorator, like a static def field decorator, that does a lot of magic stuff. So it's very object oriented, but that allows libraries to have useful, sensible.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, but that's another discussion.
Yeah, it seems interesting. We should definitely experiment with that. But I was thinking just to also mention that.
Yeah.
Like, could we also use this syntax, or do you think it's too much? Like if we have the spacing in between.
Yeah.
The common syntax, if we use that.
So that it is actually like a comment.
Yeah. So then it wouldn't be like the private stuff.
Yeah.
And you would have the space, because the space actually does mean something. So if you don't have a space, I think it's going to end up with the error in Imba 1, right?
Yeah.
So, or maybe, what do you think? Is that bad direction, the comment?
It is an interesting direction,
yeah.
But one thing I don't like about it is that it wouldn't work for single line stuff.
Why wouldn't it?
Because I can't do this.
Oh yeah. Sorry, yeah, I get it. Yeah, it's gonna comment out the whole line, right?
But we could also use, instead of using the @ we could use hash. But now we're starting to use a lot of symbols though. But if we have parentheses around the hash, then we could we could use that. I'm not sure what you.
Yeah. So what do you think? Like with the are you gonna try to wrap this up fairly soon, or do you wanna meditate on it for a few weeks?
I think we should probably schedule a changelog or an actual community meeting where maybe was it Hoffman or one of the other guys were actually contributing quite a lot to the issue, talking about potential syntaxes. I don't remember who has participated in that discussion, but as long as we find a syntax we are comfortable with, I do want to implement it as soon as possible.
Nice.
But it is not so right now. You can use double at, and that works. But I I like to use as few parentheses and brackets and braces as possible.
Yeah, I see. So Eric, in case you have to run, is there any topic you're interested in that's listed further down?
No, I can be here till we finish.
Great.
I'll go to bed afterwards.
Well, okay, let's go on to the next topic.
That sounds good.
So we should, in between this and the next community meeting, we should have scheduled a discussion about decorators. Possibly just the two of us in a changelog, but yeah.
Yeah, I wrote it down. Make a new changelog episode.
Yeah.
But do you want to show a playground? Or like so what's remaining on the slots now? Like, have you received feedback, or are you still soliciting feedback?
I think we have received some feedback, both from Eric and wasn't it someone else as well? I think it is. So Eric proposed using the close tag syntax.
Mm-hmm. Can you make it bigger? It's like super hard to see here.
I think it looked nice. We can go to the issue as well. Or we can go in GitSpeak. Yes.
There's so many slots.
Yeah. Yeah. Eric commented on users. Need to just. So I think it looks nice, especially this part looks nice. But using it this way is probably for a lot of people it will be confusing. That it looks like a close tag, and it's so in this in the using slots concept. I think it would be better with something like using the.
Yeah, good. Can you go back to the example?
This one.
Yeah. I tried replying to it via email, so the discourse email stuff is not working. So maybe we should fix that.
Eric, so the example you had here, I kind of like. I see that you basically have. So you define that you say that this knob is the slot with the name knob.
Yeah.
But this is where the content of that slot will go, right?
Yeah.
So is that because
catch all?
Huh? What? I can't hear you. You disappeared.
Oh wait.
Yeah.
Can you hear me or no?
Yeah. Now we can hear you.
Yeah. So I was just thinking that that would leave the slot tag free, so then we could use that for like a default placement.
Yeah. But your point here is that.
Content.
But isn't it like in this example, where you set the li inside of the knob, then all of this will still be here, right? So it is just going to replace whatever is inside the slot, inside the name.
So it's like a slot within the slot. Yeah.
Yeah. But I like the idea, but I guess the only reason for doing that is that you also want to be able to add properties or classes or something to the knob itself, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's just an idea. It's
yeah. But other than that,
I don't know. Yeah.
Let's paste it into the. I'm always worried about.
you guys know better than me what would work and whatnot, what wouldn't work. So
Eric is here. So yeah. So the question was that if you didn't want to be able to add classes or anything to the knob, then this would essentially be the same, right? If I understand.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, I didn't see that. So app root, if you inherit from app panel. So I
you
guess
could just put the name.
Yeah. Panel. I just need to think about how we would be able to support something like that. Yeah, because this was your solution for the super discussion, right? Whether you use self or super or yeah.
Because you could also put a name on the self.
Yeah.
The other component.
It's interesting. So I guess your whole proposal there would have worked as well with just using the hash instead. I just liked the idea that you actually have like a slot where you can separate the two concepts, like the name of the tag and the actual slot inside. It's an interesting idea. I just need to think about both where you would use it. And so do you have any real use cases for slots now?
Yeah, I mean, I'm making a dictionary app, and I'm just using a parent component that has slots, and then or a nested component with slots, and then I put into the slots the words and stuff.
Okay.
So I'm playing around with it a little bit.
Yeah.
I thought that was a really good idea to be able to name them like that, and then I thought, what if you also control where in the slot it would fall. So I'm like having a slot within a slot, but it's just me dreaming. It's easy for me to dream.
Yeah.
I'm not the one coding it.
Yeah, but it's good. We need to dream stuff up and then just look at what is possible. Yeah. And more often than not, it is possible to implement the dreams if they make sense. So,
I really like the slash though, because the not, it's, in regular JavaScript, it makes it negative. It looks like a functional thing.
Yeah.
And then, but the slash to me, it looks like, it has two names. It's the main tag, but it can also be this,
Yeah.
And I think slots is not the first feature people use, and they would learn up front that tags don't have closing tags.
Yeah.
And then later when they get to learn about slots, they're like, well, we have this slash, and this is what we're going to use for slots. Yeah, I like the pipe too. That's really neat.
Yeah, so maybe at least pipe would be better than exclamation mark if we wanted to like. But I do like the slash here as well. The question is how this is too confusing for me. You would need something like slot nav or temp nav or. So one of the I like the idea that you proposed a few weeks ago, the concept that you should be able to add classes, etc., to the native, to the slot element. Because I can see myself using that a lot, especially when you allow subclass tags to basically just insert content in the parents slots. But the problem there is, like, if we have this nav, which has let's say it's called header instead, the slot name. Then inside of here, I can obviously do something like nav or no header and some header class and then content. But the thing here, it's kind of confusing because I can't choose the type of tag here because that could collide with the type of tag defined in the render. So we just need, and the pipe here, I'm not sure. I think that looks too good, like a single pipe in the front. What do you think, Alexander?
I haven't seen that one before, so I'm not sure. But at the top, the pipe there seemed okay. The exclamation mark, yeah. Maybe I think Eric has a point with the negation.
Yeah.
But
The forward slash looks nice. I could get used to it.
To be honest,
I'm biased.
Yeah, the forward slash looks kind of weird to me, at least in the second example.
Yeah, I agree. In the first example, I think it looks pretty nice.
I think I need to play around with the first example. It seems interesting. I haven't seen that before.
Yeah. But I definitely think this looks too confusing.
Yeah, definitely.
But again, like, I also think that even if we use this syntax, I do think it makes sense to somehow separate the maybe.
So with slots now, everything is going to be a div, right? By default, or what's it going to end up?
No. If you have this slot here is a nav tag. That was the point. And this slot here, that isn't an actual tag. That is just more of a fragment. So everything.
So what is it in the DOM, or it's going to be exactly what you put in there?
Yeah.
Or is there going to be something wrapped around it?
So in this example, in the perfect world, if this was implemented correctly, then let's see. Let's use the syntax Eric proposed. Then I would do header large content. Then it would essentially like end up with the nav with the class large because we added the class here, and this would be replaced by the actual string, essentially.
But is that implemented today?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but the problem now is that if you use named slots today, then there's no way. That was the discussion we had in the changelog. Then there's no way to add just a text element, because the way you say that something is for a slot is that you have some element slot header content. So you could have multiple elements, as we saw, but you can't say that I just want a single string to replace the slot header.
And if you had nothing inside the parent slot, then it would just end up inside it by default. You don't need to put a slot tag.
Yeah. But yeah, we can probably meditate on that for a few more days at least. We're in no hurry. Like the current slots implementation is quite limited, but at least it works with not. You, Eric, do you also agree that the existing slot syntax is kind of verbose and not that obvious? Or?
Yeah. So how is it? You have to do slot, then you do name equals, then the string.
Yeah.
And then to call it,
you do any element that is going to be inside that has to have slot equals.
Slot equals, yeah. Yeah, and then you need to specify. Yeah, I was thinking that what I'd rather do is specify up above on the source slot, or the container slot, specify there what element it is, and then not have to specify down below. That's like my main thing with it.
What did you mean now?
Where it says slot name above.
Yeah.
It would be nice to have to choose the element there and choose the classes there, and then iterate on that without having to specify what element or what class. So that's like the default thing. Like I want to pull data.
Now we're losing you again. The audio became.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now it's fine again.
So yeah, the main limitation is that I would like to inherit the classes and the element from the slot and not have to specify it when I iterate it. When I, when I use it.
Yeah. Yeah, because
and that
in the current example, you don't even, this isn't really a tag. So you would always need to do like the header, large, sticky, and then inside of that do the slot name header.
Exactly.
And then there's no way to add classes or do anything with the outer header from outside.
Mm-hmm.
Did I understand that that was your kind of main point, or?
Yeah, that was kind of the things I wish I could do. Yeah,
Yeah.
when I'm using slots. I mean, it adds a lot of flexibility to have what we have now, and I can use that.
Yeah.
But I just dream.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, we should probably just think a little more.
Yeah. Let's see. Can you go back to the docs?
Yeah.
There. So the next topic is the documentation.
Yeah.
And maybe I should take over the screen.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Mm-hmm.
Where do I have?
Stop sharing.
Am I still in the meeting? No. Wait.
Hmm?
There. No, it's just the Zoom windows. They're a bit confusing. There. Should see my screen now. So let me, come on. I have a window thing. The widget thing is not disappearing. So basically we have the imba.io thing and there. So what I was thinking was let's change this to the BIA landing page.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a general information, just, hey, this is Imba. Mm-hmm. And then we're going to have a few buttons there. Mm-hmm. So one button is going to go straight to the docs, and docs is somewhere here. Let me see if I can find it. It's going to be this page here. Mm-hmm. So that's where you're going to end up if you hit the docs thing. Yeah. And then we're also going to have the changelog and also the YouTube and the Twitter. So like the usual stuff. But we want that page to be a static, slim page, no server-side code. It's going to be a static, slim page, right? Mm-hmm. And also we can look into, and that's maybe past Imba 2.0, where we have an API reference thing, which you can click on, and then you can browse all of the various. Yeah,
and we should play around with having
on the link on the docs link there. That's look like the API there.
Yeah,
for Imba 1.
Currently, it's not as it should be. So
no, and most of this type of documentation will disappear in Imba 2 because with Imba tags aren't special tags and Imba events aren't special events.
Yeah, I'm gonna write the button stuff later. So that's the idea, right?
Yeah.
So if we move to let's see. If we move to the docs.imba.io, this is a project Eric started on. Yeah. And what I was thinking was I'm going to go through this and then I'm going to start rewriting parts or adding stuff that's missing. And then I was thinking maybe Sindre, you could take a pass. Yeah. So we would take multiple passes through the documentation. But I don't know, Eric, like what's your goal with this project? Do you want us to start editing on this or?
Yeah, go ahead. How I started this was I want to understand Imba, so I'm going to start writing about it to see if I get it. I'm pretty new to coding, so I'm definitely expecting you guys to go over every single word in there because you guys know better jargon and stuff. Yeah. But it might be a good enough perspective from a beginner so you know how I learn and how maybe other people like me might want to learn. Yeah. Cool. And the farther down I go, the less I know.
Okay, cool. So that's something we could start on already now. We don't need to wait for Imba 2.0 to be released. Yeah. And we're not pushing this yet. I know you're sharing links and that's cool. But let me see here. So there are some issues with that Gitbook thing. So one is the syntax highlighting. And the other thing is I want to have links to Scrimba on every example, absolutely every example. Yeah. Because there's no interactive bits there. You can't really change any of the code. So we should like to look into if there's a way we can automatically add, if maybe we can write a Gitbook plugin or whatever it is so that we can connect the Gitbook snippets and just have a link. It doesn't have to be anything fancy.
But I guess we can easily export things from GitHub to Markdown, right? or
It is Markdown.
Yeah,
So
it is just plain Markdown, because then I think
we can make our own thing too.
yeah, so for the initial release, I definitely think we should use this, and we should use this to iterate on the documentation, restructure it and stuff. But I think it would be nice to a little further down the road actually recreate something like we have in Imba that is just more fancy, where you use the Markdown. And actually...
I'm totally onto that, but I think we should defer that for later, so we can actually focus on the much higher documentation, basically.
So, I started making some Scrimba playgrounds for some of the kind of the more complicated features of Imba there. I started making some playgrounds because I know people would want to play with it.
Yeah.
So I have done a few for functions and loops and things like that.
Yeah.
Nice.
And I've linked them on the documentation.
It might make sense to use not use Scrimba for all the regular like example playgrounds as well.
Why not?
We could. I just think it's you see some of these like Svelte and other sites has these nice split view thing for playing around with it.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, we don't have that yet, so we have to build it.
But for now, I agree.
Yeah, so it would be awesome to have something called run.imba.io, which is totally disconnected from Scrimba.
Yeah.
You can create your own projects, you can run examples, you get the nice split view you're referring to.
Yeah.
I like that, but I think like if we're gonna focus on the content, then we should just link back to Scrimba.
Yeah.
Because then we can easily on Scrimba spend time on thinking about, okay, how should this be? How should that example work out? And then when you're happy with the example, just add it to the documentation, copy the code in, and link back to it.
Yeah.
And I think also that's going to help us with start thinking about some minor examples. Like, let's say, here's code for a GitHub repository list app.
Yeah.
And here is a screencast on Scrimba that actually goes through this from start to finish.
Yeah.
So, so it would be nice to fairly early in the documentation to introduce Scrimba to the user after the user gets an overview of the language.
Yeah.
And then they're used to, okay, I'm going to have Scrimba up. If they're developers, they usually have several monitors, I assume.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be it's going to be a nice introduction. I don't know, Eric, what do you think? Is it going to pollute the documentation to have Scrimba links everywhere?
Now you disappear again. It sounds like...
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hello?
Hello?
I don't know. I'm using a Bluetooth headphones here. If you try to go to the documentation now, you go under loops and iteration.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Like right under, I see it says C on Scrimba.
Nice.
Right under the code.
Yeah.
Very good.
I don't find that very intrusive, you know, and you can just play with it right there.
Yeah, cool. I like that. That's cool.
I was playing around with different wording for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should add that like to absolutely every example, even the minor ones, the super small ones.
But I think as long as I think we can iterate a lot of the documentation before we do that for everything. Like when it's pretty messy when we change. Like I take a pass there and I see that this isn't right. I would do it this and this way.
Yeah.
And then we need to change the playground and resave it and all that all the time. I think we should. Yeah. I don't think the first thing we should do is go through and add all the code blocks to Scrimba. If you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but like, we could try that approach if you want to do the drive-by contribution thing. That's going to work, but the problem with that is it's going to take a lot of passes to get it to be good quality.
Yeah. Usually how I do it is I have Scrimba open and I'm making sure that what I'm explaining is working. When I'm done, I just copy the link, paste it, and then open a new Scrimba playground and go on to the next subject. So like I'm doing it as I go anyways. Yeah. So as you review it, you can just do that. You might find yourself doing the same thing. So it's not that complicated.
That's true. That's true.
Cool. So and that's something we can start with today. We don't need to wait. And I think
Mhm.
this is going to be the go-to place. If we look at the side, you can export to PDF. I think this is good enough. It's not as good as imba.io in my opinion, but it has search. You can search in the upper right corner for loops, and that's like a major improvement compared to imba.io. So I think this is going to be very good. Maybe we could look into how we can customize some of the colors if it's possible. I don't know, Eric, have you looked into that?
Yeah, we're very limited. You can choose like 2 colors. It's like the black and the yellow. That's it.
Okay, so the next thing I was thinking to do with this was set up a new repository on the Imba organization and connect that with this, so we can isolate this away from imba.io, because it seems that it does some automated stuff, which is just going to break everything. So it's better to just create a new repository and get that connected. And the repository can be empty, it can be overridden. We don't really need to worry. And then later we can always, if we want this to be the main site, it could also be that. There's nothing blocking that. We could also self-host this eventually, I think. Or do you know if we can self-host Gitbook, Eric?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so either. But is that?
No, it's not important.
I think if we come to the step where we actually want to self-host Gitbook, then we should rather just create, like we have on Imba.io, our own markdown rendering of the documentation, and then add search, because that shouldn't be too hard, right?
No, it's not too hard.
And it's nice as well to actually put a lot of effort and love into the Imba.io page as an example of a relatively like dynamic website with both some server side and client side components and stuff.
Yeah, we definitely need to have our own thing eventually, because it doesn't speak a lot if you're using all these other platforms to just talk about your language.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so but we could also come back to that in 1 year or 2. So it's not like something that's urgent.
No.
Like I think if we get the documentation top notch, that's what we decided, right? Several meetings back, we're going to focus on the content. We're not going to focus on presentation and how the code is being run and that. So if we get the documentation up to top notch, and I think Scrimba is going to be a key part of that. So that's going to be what early users see. And I don't think they really care if their code is running on imba.io or on scrimba.com, but as long as they have this like fast feedback loop. I write something, something happens, I write something, it changes on screen, and they can learn at their own pace. And also, like, that's not directly related to the documentation. Sindre has mentioned a couple of times that he wants to maybe ask Bob Cyril to do a course on Imba.
When Imba is good enough and documented enough that I can teach it to it.
So, but we could also look into doing that ourselves. We have the changelog ongoing. Another thing would be to go through some of the lists I've generated. I have several notes. And we could try taking the same approach as other Scrimba courses. So that's it for the documentation. Do you guys have anything else you'd like to add?
I don't think so. I think for the landing page and stuff, I think we should brainstorm more with Eric as well, like do some sketches and.
I could design some stuff.
That would be awesome.
I already saw. I liked the sketch where you coined the friendly full stack language. That type of feel is nice. So
I'm gonna play around with that. That I can do easier than working with Rollup and all that. So I'll do that for the next few weeks and keep you guys posted.
Cool. Perfect.
Yeah. So the last topic is the VS coding.
Yeah.
So how is it going with the extension?
I haven't done anything with it for a week at least now. There are some stuff missing, like workspaces, and there are some annoying over-eager diagnostics from TypeScript. Right now, I'm just struggling to find the project. So before Imba launches, it still needs like an actual project to be developed in Imba 2. So we need to start porting one of the things that we have internally here, or something else that is of just a decent size.
I think like Imba.io is a really nice example.
Yeah, I agree. So then we should do Imba.io, but that's the point, that for the tooling as well, I need a project that we are actually going to fix syntax highlighting, to fix all the things that are remaining.
Imba.io is perfect.
Yeah. And I really would like your inputs, mainly because I think it's a huge hassle, but I would like your help for making the syntax highlighting part work, like the TM language configuration, because it breaks down in a lot of cases now with tag syntax and events and event handlers and attributes. So yeah, there are many places where the syntax highlighting just breaks down.
Yeah, I get it. I'm just thinking maybe it would be useful to write something that converts the TM language to the Monaco syntax. Do you think that's too much work? Before Scrimba later.
Because the the Monarch syntax is so much better. Actually, it has features that are not possible in the language, which makes things easier.
So there's no feature parity.
No. Yeah.
Okay.
Sadly, I have considered. It would probably take me a few days since I don't know the code base that much, but I have considered just doing a pull request to VS Code, just to allow extensions to use Monarch syntaxes in VS Code as well, because it makes no sense for me. Now they've started adding a support for semantic token highlighting in the last release. But it makes no sense for me that in the web version of VS Code, you're using Monarch syntaxes, which are cleaner, easier to implement, and probably even faster than TM language syntaxes. But you can't use them in the application, like in VS Code. And that just doesn't make sense to me. So at least raise another issue asking why and see if they are open to accepting it in a pull request. But yeah.
I think you should write an issue on that. That should be straightforward. But one thing I was thinking, if we decide to use Imba.io as a project for testing out Imba 2, and I think maybe it doesn't need to be Imba.io at the end. It could be this playground thing.
What do you mean?
Like we could change Imba.io on a new branch and turn it into this playground thing. Because all of the bits are there, really, if you think about it. Yeah. There is several examples. Yeah. And the format is defined. We just need to have rendering which is split view. Yeah. And you select the example, right?
Do you remember the very first version of the Imba.io site?
Yes, like it's split view, exactly. Yeah. Or we could go back to that one and rewrite the early version of Imba.io.
That's actually quite cool. So that the whole language page is like an editor.
Yeah. But so we have two options: either Imba.io currently or previous Imba.io, or of course we could also do another thing. Yeah. But I think like it's going into the GitSpeak code base and picking out something there. I don't know, like either we'll end up picking something too big or something too small. Yeah. So I think it's better to pick open source projects which you can actually also, we can show, hey, here is an actual example where you can see this was actually rewritten or this was migrated over to Imba 2.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Makes sense. Cool. So that's it.